basically, Harriet was going to give some introductory comments on the executive board. She's our secretary to the executive board in Rome, and she wanted me to mention that especially this visit to Munich was a first of its kind. What was done in the past was a visit to our UNHRD, Humanitarian Response Depot in Brindisi, and they also have an innovation lab, and our board in general takes field visits, so they do joint field visits also with other agencies together. However, the event that I'm going to talk you through was one of the first time, basically, that built on a momentum that we created in the executive board on raising the interest in innovation, and then eventually taking the board to where the innovation work is actually happening. Apart from that, obviously, the projects in the field are doing innovation work every day. The conversation we had, though, was how can we best show how the accelerator supports those projects in the most concise way. So the conversation that we had with the executive board started very early. Oh, you already, that's cool.
Julia, sorry, I was just going to say that we haven't found Harriet. So okay. I think you're on your own to just move forward with this.
That's great. Then I will send her apologies to everybody who's on the line. She wanted to join. She had an unexpected, very long executive board bureau meeting, actually, what we just learned about. Our board is very similarly structured to the one that we just heard about in UNICEF. So they had a bureau meeting today, which went over time. So she apologizes and she sends her regards. So we started the conversation with the executive board membership already leading up to the opening or to the inauguration of the Innovation Accelerator here in Munich. So this was in 2015. And building on this, we already also had 2 side events. We had one in November 2015. We also have 3 executive board sessions in Rome every year. And we did our first side event in Rome. It was hosted by the permanent representation of Germany to the international organizations based in Rome. And we helped co-facilitate as the Innovation and then Change Management Division. And we learned since then, and Germany is our main supporter here our main donor for the Innovation Accelerator setup in Munich. So this is how this whole conversation started. And we learned from that side event that it was under our previous executive director. And we took this forward and we had a follow-up side event in November 2017 as well, again hosted together with Germany, which was great because through these conversations we could engage other member states, and we had a much more dialogue-focused side event, which happened during lunch hour so it's not an official special session that happened, but it happens during the lunch break, basically, of the official sessions of the executive board. So we could build this interest and the momentum, and then also through the bureau conversations and obviously bilateral meetings that we held and individual visits of certain delegations from member states to Munich, we could take an opportunity, also thanks to the Secretariat, to offer a field visit to Munich. So not the typical field, but joining us here at the Accelerator. Sorry. And so we looked at an opportune time so we could best show innovation at work, and that's where the Scale-up Bootcamp comes in. Thanks for going onto that slide. It's we held our first Scale-up Bootcamp this year, early October. We brought our most successful Scale-up projects to Munich, 8 of them, to really intensely work at their challenges, to look at their challenges and how we could bring them to the next level, to really look at how can we bring them to expand, to bring them to the next level of rollout readiness, expand globally, and also get access to further funding opportunities to reach impact at scale. So this is how we then ended up shaping the visit of the executive board around that first day to link again back to key stakeholders. And the other 2 days were structured more around specific challenges that these teams are facing, and that's related to internal processes, etc., but also the scaling models. If you could go to the next slide, please. Oh, and what I forgot to mention, all the photos you see, that is here in Munich. That's the Innovation Accelerator in Munich. It's our setup here where we hold our boot camps 3 to 7 times a year by now. And we had these 8 teams here, the scale-up team. So we already were about 60 people in the office, and we received the executive board delegation on the first day. It was really like a quick and dirty, I almost want to say. The board members, the delegation came in the morning and flew out in the afternoon. So it was a really tight agenda that we tried to shape around the program of ongoing innovation work that we had here happening in Munich. So we did, in principle, we set up 5 sessions or 5 segments of the agenda. The first, we had when the board delegation arrived here, we immediately went into showtime. We had all the 8 teams pitch their scale-ups, their innovation projects, followed by a quick Q&A session. So really diving straight into the specifics and also the kind of the pain points of these projects and where they were at. And then we went straight into a lunch and networking situation where the executive board members could mingle with the teams and the presenters and other senior attendants that we had around. That our chief of staff also joined us for this trip, which was great. And I mean, and we also heard before, what was really interesting was that we tried to shape the whole day around creating a more spontaneous and direct interaction rather than the typical board setting where there's prepared statements, etc. And obviously also there was a lot of pre-work in making sure that delegates know what's going to come at them, what's going to happen. We went, after lunch, we had a lightning talk from a colleague from the BASF Foundation. She's the Sustainability and Innovation Manager there. And this was also something that the board, the Secretariat leading up to this event explicitly asked for, to bring this outside perspective to it. So we had a good mix of this external view from BASF and what they're doing in the field, and then feeding that or opening up a panel discussion that we held. And we had someone there from a senior advisor from BCG, our chief of staff, Rehan, one of our Scale-up project managers, the former ambassador of Germany to the Rome-based agency, who's now in the German Federal Foreign Office in Berlin, a digital transformation officer or responsible for digital transformation. And as I said, Ms. Tavi from the BASF Foundation. And then the moderator, someone you all would know, that's Robert Opp, our Director of Innovation and Knowledge Management Division. So it's really interesting to see. We tried to put a more provocative theme to the panel discussion, but we ended up having a theme that was called what does it take to innovate for SDGs? We tried all kinds of things around, let's say, also a conversation around failure, but leading up and in the conversations, in the preparations, we settled for, let's say, a more moderate theme that people spoke to. Then after this panel discussion, which caused a lot of interaction already with the delegation afterwards in terms of questions, we took the delegates and we matched them with specific teams. So that's what we call mentoring World Cafe. So the delegates got basically cards to go and see the teams and directly interact with them in their working space. So where the teams were working on their next level business model, etc. So we had a really direct interaction between the board members and the really raw kind of where they're at. What's the problems? What type of support do they need? So it was a really engaging conversations there. And it was, I think the thing that made me most happy was that the delegation members were really active and really enjoyed this conversation. It was kind of hard to get them out of those rooms to send them back to the airport. Yeah. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So how did we deal with this kind of short, high-intensity, targeted engagement? It wasn't a giant event. It was kind of a smaller setting, but we managed to have 14 delegates there from 13 countries and from 13 member states: the US, Germany, Belgium, Norway, France, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Denmark, Switzerland, Sudan, Colombia, Israel, and China. So it was a really good mix, also a good representation of the different lists, so the different geographic groups within the executive board. And we really we set us as an objective to showcase what innovation work looks like in action. So what do we actually do during these boot camps? Continue the dialogue with the board, but at a different level. Foster the engagement in innovation topics that like all our teams that were here, they were all very different, from high tech to business model innovation, low tech. So really kind of show the broad bandwidth, and also to take this opportunity to deepen the knowledge of what we're actually doing here in Munich, also the entire program, not only the boot camp, because that's the most visible, if you want so. And I think finally, we wanted to make sure that we broaden our stakeholder group, our innovation-minded stakeholder group, and that with the hope that these stakeholders would take some of the insights back to the executive board in Rome. And I think, we were super happy that we had actually so many delegates participate in the visit, and just we counted these delegates alone represent like 3.8 billion of annual contributions to the World Food Program globally. So we were happy with that high level attention we had to our relatively small-ish setup here in Munich. We are 25 people. Also from those conversations, some of the teams took away some specific links and contacts of tech companies and institutions in the respective countries, so really practical advice also coming from the delegates. And we had a lot of requests for further information following up on this, and we also continued after this this one-day quick visit a lot of the conversations on like future opportunities, etc. So if you could go to the next slide. Here, I just wanted to show you a little bit some of the reactions that we got from the delegates, a little bit of the visibility. It was really great to see that some of them really took up and kind of rooted for our setup, for our cause, for looking at how we do things here differently and how this could translate into other areas of our work. So I was gonna pause here. I can also maybe give some short reflections for 1 minute. Maybe also what we heard before, it was really good to see. I mean, obviously we had a long lead time and there's a lot of planning to have all the stars aligned, to have an actual active session while such a visit happens. Also, there's a lot of pre-conversations so that delegates know what's going to be expected, the protocol aspect of obviously who's talking first and to whom, really important. But also great to see that after all this, there was really a great openness to our processes, the progress, and also the failures, and also being like really pants down on what works, what doesn't work. So that was great. And also to see that through these kind of, through this engagement, there's also a peer-to-peer, like between the delegates, confirmation, affirmation of this is something, like this is like we're onto something, and this is a cause or an area that should be further focused on, also from a board perspective. So I'm going to stop here. I mean, maybe just to mention, following this visit, which happened on 8th of October this year, we also we brought an exhibition that we had done for the UN General Assembly to our just recent board, and showcase some of the work with artificial intelligence, with virtual reality, and also some of our more low-tech hydroponics project at the sidelines of the board. And we scheduled walkthroughs with the different delegations. So just maybe to close the loop of all the engagement with our governing body.